Hello, this is Sudhakar Moparthi once again. Today we're going to see an example of a C1 C2 diagram. Uh, there is some explanation about identity-based policies, resource-based policies. This is an example, and then lots of explanation. So what I did, I just drew this C1 C2 diagram to depict all the relations, what they are trying to say in these English sentences. So I translated that into a diagram. So let's analyze looking at this diagram with those arrows. Wherever you see double arrows, that means the two classes have one-to-many relationship. Um, so that means I can connect uh, one object from this class to multiple uh, objects in this class. Okay, so let's first see. There's an account, so we got a class, and then we have one star. Okay, one object because one account. Okay, and then this account has some identity-based policies. You know, so identity-based policy, and then I got one, two, three, four. So I got four objects, and then this it's one to many. So I indicated that with the two arrows. So that means one account can have many identity-based policies. Similarly, resource-based policies. I can have multiple resource-based policies. Then John Smith, Carlos, Mary, etc. So I got a bunch of users. That's the user class. Okay, I got list, read, list, read, write. So I created all those permissions. List, read, write, three permissions, and that's a class. Then I got resource X, Y, Z. So I created three objects X, Y, Z. I called it under resource. Now we have to, we got all the basic entities, user, account, policy, resource-based policy, identity-based policy, and permissions. Now we will see John Smith has can list, read. So user permissions. John Smith can list and read. So we need to have user permission. So we got user permission. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I created 4 objects. Now let's take an example of John. John list and read. Okay, so we take one. Okay, now I'm going to use this feature, win invisible pen. Then I will draw using invisible pen. Okay. So I take a user permission. So which user? Has which which uh, which permissions? So the permissions here are list and read. So I can connect John. I can pick. Okay, so let me take this. So let's say John, because one user. This is telling me that I can only have one user. So John. Then this is telling me that I can have multiple. So list and read. So two arrows. So if I draw that, let me draw that using this color. Okay. So I can have John list and read. Okay. Now let's come here. Resource X has John Smith can list and read. John Smith can list and read. John Smith can list and read. Is that user permission? This object. It's on resource X. Resource X. Mary can list and read. List and read. This one, let's assume, oops. Let me undo that. Let me draw another Mary. Mary can list and Mary can list and read. So if you are observing these yellow lines, so you can see Mary can list and read. Okay. And so now resource-based policy, resource X. So we have resource IAM user permission. So from here, we can go to the resource, which is means let's take this and then resource X. And then we have John Smith list read, Mary list read. These are the two objects. So we connect this one to these two objects, user permissions. Okay. So once we have that, then let's take one of these, basically this box we're talking this. Okay, so we will attach that one to here. Okay. All right. So now John Smith can read X. He can read X. Okay, according to identity-based policy. Okay. John Smith can list and read. So the resource-based policy also telling John Smith can list and read. So that is allowed on X. Mary can list, read, write on XYZ. Mary can do all the things. But on the resource, we are saying Mary can list and read, which means she cannot write. So that means on X, she cannot write. Even though she can do all those things on XYZ based on identity-based policy, when it comes to that resource, finally, this because you are overriding and then saying it they can only list and read. Mary cannot write on resource X, even though it is saying here. So what is this telling me is that we have all these relationships. Okay. So I'm going to undo the object connections. I'll just leave the I'll just leave the yeah, I'll just leave the class connections. So here, so we create all those combinations and then use those appropriate objects to allow or disallow. Okay. So once we draw this kind of diagram based on the information presented here, this is a this is a model. This is a model that the computer stores, and based on this, there are certain things that I can do and I cannot do. I can create objects and then connect them and then reuse those objects again and again in a very unambiguous way. Okay. So when I create this object, so all I have to do is I need to follow these arrows and then say, okay, I can pick a user and then I can pick many permissions. Once I have that, then I can attach that to an identity-based policy because there is one. Every identity-based policy will have one of these. Okay. And then, so if you follow these arrows, and this arrow, and then this and this, then you defined pretty much an identity-based policy. Okay, one is missing here. Okay, let me draw that. As you could see, I need to have a user, I need to have a permission, and then I need to have a X and Y connection. So I should have an arrow going from here to here, one to one. No, one to many is possible. Why? Because you see here on resource XY, user permissions on resources. All so that is this object, this one of these objects. The second one will have this one, multiple Y and Z. So I can define an identity-based policy. So once I store this type of JSON or this diagram in skill bank, now we just taught the machine the relationships among different entities. And now the machine has that knowledge that what is allowed, what is not allowed. Now I can ask some questions and we can export this entire thing as a JSON data. And then on that JSON, we can ask questions like what is allowed, what is not allowed. Using ChatGPT, give the JSON object and ask a question in English, and it will reply by parsing that JSON and understanding these relationships. That's how ChatGPT we can integrate into this model. But this is important. This kind of connections and creating this model is important. So hope this gives some more insight into these diagrams, how I'm looking at them. So I got a bunch of users, I got a bunch of permissions, I got user permissions, I got a bunch of policies, identity-based policies under this account, and then I got a bunch of resource-based policies, and I got resource I user permission combination, and so I got a user, I got a resource, I got resource, user, and permission. Okay, uh, permissions. Okay, so that's how these diagrams will be useful. This is a little bit more information here because there's a lot of relationships here and entities, and that's why it may look complex. But listen to it a little bit more, or listen to the parts of this video multiple times just to clarify how I'm drawing these arrows and what I'm saying. This is the most precise way I can define the relationships. And if I understand these relations, that means I understood how the system is behaving in AWS. Okay, so this is the relationships that they are making, that AWS is implementing. So we are trying to discover how AWS is maintaining this data and then get an insight. So by analyzing in this fashion. All right, that's all for today, and good luck. And if you are interested in this type of crowdsourced AI integration projects, please get in touch with me. I want to translate English text into this precise C1, C2 language, and which is depicted in this diagram, and then export that as a JSON and connect with the uh, ChatGPT to answer questions in English. So that's the project that I'm working on, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Get in touch with me through LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Have a nice day or night wherever you are in the world.